Vanessa. Welcome to HR Heroes.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited to have you here.
No, same. Actually, when you reached out, I was like, of course, I would love to be part of this. And I actually love the series that you're doing. I did like it, I think, and you had reached out on LinkedIn, and I was like so privileged that you were like, oh, like let's have a chat. Really happy to be part of this. Thank you.
No problem. The stars really aligned because I saw that you'd like to. I knew about Dock and Bay from beforehand anyway, and I thought actually perfect to reach out to you and have you, as a listener and now a guest on the show. So as you'll know from listening, I always kick this off with a first question, which is why HR?
Wow. So why HR? It's tough, right? Because I actually kind of I would say fell into HR, to be honest. In terms of my initial expectations and where I am right now, it's like a hit and miss for me. And that's me being honest. But in terms of, I guess, my core thing is why I first started off in HR is that I really, really wanted to make an impact, right? In sort of business, right? And I knew that I was people-centric, super people-orientated. And I thought HR was probably the best kind of field to go into in business, where it's okay, I can have this strategic influence and be at the table, make all these amazing decisions. But reality at the beginning of my career was, again, did not meet those expectations, I'll be honest with you. So HR for me started off super admin heavy, to be honest, and sort of limited exposure to sort of the strategic side. And I've always been this person with vision, strategy. I feel like I've always been super strategy led and always wanting to make an impact. But I'll be honest, right? The beginning was policies, process, firefighting, dealing with issues, and just really not big picture stuff. Honestly, it was quite mundane. And then I felt like HR was associated with a back office function, to be honest. And we were caught when, can you swear on this? I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Or when shit hits the fan, as people say, and you wanted, people would just call you to fix the problems, and you weren't really proactively part of the solution, But then I've been on this journey of evolution, and then for me the why is okay, I am part of that kind of strategic vision of a business. So presently, over time, I have seen that shift, and it's been a huge shift for me. So, now, the perception of HR is, you are part of that bigger strategy. And for me, that's the why for me. So I'm part of that bigger strategy. That's part of the solutions and part of really the strategic goals of the business. A good example of the why for me is one of the business goals currently for this year at Dock and Bay is really about building a high performance workforce, and that has everything to do with my function. And HR is at the heart of it, from talent acquisition to learning and development to performance management, culture building. So for me, it's it's not the support function, right? It's the core part of that business engine. So for me, why HR is why not? Why not be part of building a business which is people centric and part of the core goal, essentially. So that's the why for me.
No, I love it. And it's so important and it's so true. I was at an event earlier today and they were talking about the fact that people-centric businesses, or businesses that focus on high-performing individuals and how they invest in them as a resource, outperform other businesses, whatever index you look at in terms of business performance.
Yes.
I think typically, and I could be wrong here with the stats, but around 5 to 7%. So it is clear that the proof is in the pudding, as you say. The people are the beating heart of the business, and you're going to drive results from kind of the inside out. In them. But it's so interesting what you said as well around kind of maybe having that realization at the start that it's not kind of a case whereby you might go straight into that big picture thinking and that strategy, but actually kind of learning all of the different realms of HR and the admin behind it and kind of all of that to utilize, so that in the future, when you do go into that more strategy based role, you've kind of got all of the learnings to kind of
100%. So the thing is about strategies that you've got to do that groundwork to even get there, right? So all of those like mundane admin tasks are kind of like key to building up that experience, building up that kind of like resilience as well. And also you have to like look at it from a perspective of, you know, to be able to like see potential in yourself, you kind of have to work from the ground up. You have to be in the nitty gritty of things. I think HR business partners specifically have a great role in this, because what they're able to do is understand problems of the business, apply it to strategy, and then come up with a solution. So, and when we say problems, it's those people problems, those niggly grey areas, those pain points that people are experiencing in the business, and they're able to strategically work and partner up with the business to create solutions. So you're completely right. I actually don't know a successful business without a strategic HR function, right? It's super, super hard to build a business without this function in place. Every good business is people-centric and people-focused.
Could not agree more. Yeah, I think it's so important, and it's so great to hear you and so many other guests on the podcast have that stance and that belief. And it's so clear now that more and more businesses are kind of approaching the people function from that strategic realm as well.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And that angle. But I guess kind of it might tie into what you've already said a little bit, because there was some good advice there in terms of being able to kind of learn from the ground up and to learn from doing and having your ear to the ground, right, before kind of going into a more strategic HR role. But what sort of advice would you give someone who's starting their career in HR, or you wish you'd known when you'd started?
Yeah, I would say, and this is going to be a bit different, maybe. It's just, I think empathy is a superpower, but protect it at every cost, every means, right? One piece of advice I wish I'd known is that whilst empathy is essential for every single HR person, personnel, professional, it needs balance to protect your well-being. We're trained very, very early in our careers actually to look at the facts, remove emotion, especially when you're working in a ER related environment. So employee relations, you know, you may be dealing with certain scenarios and or grievances and things like that. And you're really trained to focus on kind of like the facts. But the truth is that without emotion, HR becomes transactional. So that empathy piece is super, super important, and is a core trait for every great HR professional to kind of like think about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding their perspective, showing up as a human and not just as a policy enforcer. However, on the flip side is that empathy burnout is real. I don't know if you've ever heard of empathy burnout, but there are so many articles out there on empathy burnout, and it's something that I've actually struggled with earlier on in my career. So HR is like deeply people centric, and we're often the go-to for very, very difficult conversations, as I mentioned before, like with employee grievances or even personal challenges. How about if an employee is going through a long-term condition, and this is something that may resonate with you because you know you've dealt with it in your own family? It can be very, very, very triggering. And there is this ongoing conversation on LinkedIn, I don't know if you've seen, but who is the HR for HR, right?
Yeah, so true.
It doesn't exist, Molly. So it's important to have those like boundaries in place. So I would say, you know, learn to protect your empathy. Don't lose it. It's one of the greatest tools, but build boundaries super early, because I wish I had. Over the years, I've done things to protect my mental health, and it's still kind of like, I'm still in progress with it. As I mentioned before, the HR for HR isn't always there. And if you're in an organization where it is there, well, congrats, because it is super hard to find. It's almost non-existent. And then it's always about, you know, it's okay to care deeply, but it's also okay to, like, I would say, step back, reset and recharge. You know, you can't pour from an empty cup. So for me, those are my sort of key pieces of advice, which is that empathy piece and boundary piece.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, because I think, as you say, it's something that's not often explored, or that you wouldn't necessarily know unless someone like yourself, who's been successful in their role and can kind of look back, can actually then say, you know, you need to be able to protect your own peace. And like I say, I think for a people team, because you care so deeply about the people in the business, it can be really difficult to kind of have that divide between work and home as well, because you probably take a lot of that you've had from work home, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. And especially, if you're dealing with big things like restructuring or redundancies, those real big R's in HR can be super, super hard to navigate. And you're essentially changing the trajectory of a lot of people's lives, right? One of the biggest things I can pull from is like, the COVID era, where HR professionals were probably the most burnt out, but the most kind of like enforcers of change. And that was fundamental change, whether it's putting 50% of your team on furlough, what that means for your employees financially, dealing with those kind of like emotional repercussions or, well-being issues. So yeah, it's so hard, but it's a boundary that is essential to cultivate. If you set emotional boundaries early, it doesn't make you cold, it makes you sustainable. So that would just, for me, it's really, really key.
Yeah, and it's really interesting what you said about HR for HR, because I know that therapists generally have therapists, and that's like a role that sits within that profession. And it's almost like HR should have their own HR, and maybe there's a wider look into building a community for something like that, because I know networking obviously in HR is huge in terms of being able to find those people who have the same experiences as you. But that connection led piece is so important as well, in terms of actually being human, and like you say, appreciating you can't be switched on and empathetic at all times, and having those boundaries, but also, especially the new generation coming into the business, are led by that connection piece. So it's building real relationships with people and leading with
100%. I was going to say, actually, because like I've actually got a very, very great core network of HR professionals that I was so lucky to meet at different avenues in my life. One was like my master's, because we're all studying human resources, and it was like, okay, we're in a capacity of work at the moment, and we can connect, and we can like, even if it's someone to just like have a little gossip with, like, oh, what's going on? You know what I mean? I know it sounds like really like wow, so not HR of you, but I think it's important to have that space where you can actually talk about things as well with people, and without going to either, your spouse or your partner, someone that actually understands your world. So I would say definitely networking, building a network of HR professionals where you can bounce ideas off of, where you can share, like, today was tough, we're going through redundancies, and then someone else knows exactly how that feels. It's just it's a game changer.
Yeah, it's energizing, isn't it, to be around people who, even if you're not always in the most positive situations, who can lift you up, who can suggest new ideas, like you say, and actually together you can come out of that situation both feeling stronger and better equipped for your role. I think Dominica, who was a guest in the previous series, she said, and it wasn't directly within HR, but find a helpful soul. And I guess it is kind of similar in HR to find someone who soul who you can go to around that. But no, that's really interesting, Venessa. I love that as advice. And the next question is always quite tricky, because the political landscape, the economic landscape, the technological landscape, everything is changing so rapidly at the moment. From your perspective, where do you see the field of HR or people heading in the next 5 years?
No, this is an interesting one, but I think, when we look at trends, right now, I think the big one is really that technological advancements. Sorry, I got that word right eventually. Where, in the AI space, I think everyone is talking about AI. And if you're not, you're behind, right? It's definitely a trend. It's definitely a potential disruption. And it's definitely, impacting HR professionals like myself, and so I would say AI is a game changer, and it's also here to stay, right? And for me, that's a trend, not just now, but definitely see staying within sort of the next 5 years for sure. One of the most significant forces sort of shaping HR is artificial intelligence, and that's across different tools. I'm sure that you have, I don't know if you use AI tools, but I am all for AI. And it's a trending topic at the moment, and it's definitely here to stay, as I mentioned before. But in terms of, it's going to develop how we work, how we hire and develop talent, right? And manage culture. And this is huge. It's a force to be reckoned with. So I believe HR professionals like myself have to embrace AI. First of all, not just by using it, but shaping how your organization may be using this as well, and ensuring that there's a responsible use of it within the business. So really taking, so I think over the next 5 years, we have to really take employees from fear to empowerment, so changing the narrative, because there's a lot of fear mongering out there, Molly, and it's still out there. At first it was like, AI will replace your jobs, you know, and the truth is, I heard this amazing quote at a HR conference the other week, and I said I have to bring this up. But a panelist was speaking about AI and HR, and you know, and employees, and the quote was around, AI won't replace your job, the people using AI will. And that really, really resonated with me, because the truth is that it's such a situation right now where it's here to stay, and being fearful of it only does you a disservice at the moment. So really, what HR leaders have to do is that we have a responsibility to sort of like educate, upskill, and empower our team to leverage it. So I really see that as a core kind of like phase, like a core focus for the next 5 years. And then really focus on like how efficiency, optimization, and how this adds value to your work. So the real opportunity with AI I see is really driving efficiencies and automating low value tasks, so that HR teams like myself can really focus on what matters. So and going on that transitional piece, our jobs then become really less admin focused and more strategy led, culture led, and people focused. So I really see HR professionals becoming super tech savvy, data driven, and almost culture architects, blending empathy with insight and technology with human connection. So for me, that's where I would see it. And then also for the next 5 years, I would say what HR professionals need to do is, if you're not working on a HR policy, on an AI policy, start working on one. That's what I'm focusing on now. Like this current financial year, I'm looking at AI policies. I think it's time to start building on that. Encourage your workforce to explore different AI tools that create like a psychological safe space for experimentation. You know, have employees actually come to you with how they're applying these sort of technologies and tools to their workload. To their workflow. And then, and let them like amplify the impact, let them showcase how they're amplifying this impact, and not diminish like sort of like that human value, because that human value can be focused on the bigger picture, essentially. So I think 2 things or 3 things from this is definitely that technological landscape of things in the next 5 years. We can really focus on those bigger picture things, and automate more some of like the mundane tasks.
Yeah, and it ties so nicely into what you said at the start of the call around actually going into this role because you want to focus on strategy and the business and how you can drive the business forward. And those admin tasks, although you learn a lot from them, were maybe distracting. So actually, like you say, being able to use AI to optimize or boost efficiency and actually save costs for the business as well, right? Because if your time can be better spent focusing on the goals of the business or the strategy rather than kind of being in the weeds, going through those long admin tasks that we've all kind of been stuck doing. But that empowerment piece is really important as well, as you said, and it's really interesting. A lot of businesses that I've been speaking to say the exact same, that they're working on an AI policy at the moment. And I think that then gives the people within your business the confidence to be able to start using AI so that you can see results from that. But secondly as well, and it's really interesting, I had a conversation with someone recently around that trust piece. I think, as you say, people are really nervous that AI might replace their role or there might be a negative impact. But I guess it's looking at how, as a business, you communicate that use of AI and that trust with managers or that trust with their direct line reports, whereby this is actually a great tool. This is what it can do for you. And because they trust you and they trust the business, people actually feel like they can benefit from those tools as well.
Yeah, another strategy I led was actually implementing AI training. I had this amazing company called General Purpose come in and kind of like break down those barriers and fears of using ChatGPT, for example. But not only that, taught like our team prompt engineering so that they're using the tool but super effectively and getting exactly what they need to get out of it. So they, our team, including myself, learned like 12 to 13 different prompts and how to best use ChatGPT. And actually the team walked away feeling way more empowered than they ever did going into the session. We kind of like had a 50-50 split of like who uses AI and what for. Is it for work? Is it for personal life? And then coming out of that, we have almost 90% of our team using AI tools in their everyday work life now, just coming out of that training. So for me, that shift is so fundamental, and that training really encouraged our employees to, leverage the tool to better, suit their, their work and their tasks across the board.
Yeah, that's so impressive. Yeah, really like tackling it head on and saying, as you mentioned earlier, that technological shift is happening. People are moving to AI. The people who aren't utilizing it in the best possible way are going to be left behind. So how do we as a business drive ourselves and our people forward? And that sounds like a great initiative, which ties quite nicely into my next question. And I don't know whether this forms part of it, but in terms of kind of the best cultural initiative that you've seen implemented across any business, and I always say, it can be something you've implemented yourself, it can be something you've seen at a business you've worked at, or it can be a brand that you admire and you've seen do something great. It would be great.
Yeah, I would say, currently where we're at the moment, it's definitely a business that we're currently implementing at the moment, an initiative that we are currently implementing at the moment. And for me, it's around that feedback-driven culture rooted in growth mindset. So one of the most powerful initiatives that we're seeing and currently implementing is a feedback-driven culture. So this, and I want to make it very clear that this wasn't just a training session or like a writing on the wall, right? Just to say adopt a growth mindset. No, it was really, really beyond that. We've actually embedded this mindset into every stage of the employee journey. So from recruitment to onboarding to performance reviews and promotions, how can we sort of embed feedback as an ongoing conversation versus once a quarter or at a yearly review? It has to be a cultural practice. And and even how we coach, mentor and speak as leaders day to day. So it's now a core behavioral competency in the business, and it's something that we assess and develop intentionally. So growth versus fixed mindset has been sort of that like culture defining shift. So I'm not sure if you know about the concept of growth versus fixed mindset, but what a growth mindset says is you believe that with effort, learning and feedback, you can improve and succeed, right? In contrast, a fixed mindset says it's pretty static, right? So people focus on what they can't do, language like I can't, I'll never, that's not my skill set, tends to like dominate the conversation. So we're really helping our teams shift from fixed to growth. And we've created a culture of like possibility, resilience, and like that personal ownership piece as a result. Another layer to this is kind of like the Radical Candor framework. It's been a huge game changer. I don't know if you've heard of a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott.
Yes.
Honestly, I live by it. Molly, it's game changing. It really is. But the principle is simple and powerful, which is care personally and challenge directly. So as leaders, as employees, as colleagues, we can deeply care about our colleagues and employees and still hold them accountable and give honest feedback and push for excellence. So we're currently in the process of implementing this framework, but we can already see the changes and those incremental changes on just even like the way that we encounter each other at work, the way that we challenge. It's powerful, it's reinforcing, and it's really creating a place of psychological safety and high performance at the same time. And it's really cultivating a really healthy balance of both. Radical Candor isn't just like, it's like the sweet spot of like kindness with honesty and care with accountability. And it's a really, really healthy way to move forward as a business and really just have that ability to challenge each other, but still, again, go back to that overarching goal of building a high performance workforce. So for me, that would be sort of the game changer and what we're currently doing and working actively at the moment on.
Wow, really exciting as an initiative. And it's great to hear that it's, some not small tweaks, but kind of those, even the small tweaks you've made so far, you're already seeing results. So when the frameworks are introduced, it's like how much because people are interacting every day in a business, right?
Yeah.
So if you can empower people to have that radical candor and actually tweak a conversation slightly so that people are being more honest with each other or are giving it's beneficial to the individual or to the business as a whole, then it changes the whole trajectory of what that meeting achieves.
It really, really does. And it can just be small things like just, guys, in the spirit of radical candor, I'm going to challenge slightly. You know what I mean? And literally, everyone in the business knows what Radical Candor is. We've actually had a couple of employees even order the book for themselves. We are currently pushing the narrative, currently pushing that mindset, and it's all about that growth mindset. You know, applying that growth mindset to every level of the organization, and you know, and to everything that we do as people. So that's why it's a core behavioral competency now, and it's from recruitment right through to onboarding, right through to performance evaluations. You are assessed on how how you're applying growth mindset to everything that you do.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how it's a behavioral competency as well, and not like just, I don't mean just a value, but sometimes when you might have the value of trust, or you might have the value of radical candor, but it's how you actually embody those values or live and breathe them through the business, which is really difficult to achieve. So having that behavioral competency piece and actually tying it directly to people's performance really helps to kind of make sure that people are actually confident enough. And like you say, that psychological safety piece around people feeling that they are in a space, and you've built such a great culture where people are happy to try it and test it and feel more confident with utilizing radical candor. And I guess in the future as well, I suppose it might even become part of people get the book when they
exactly. Yeah, I know, that's like a great initiative there. Maybe part of that onboarding package where it's like, you've been handed that Radical Candor book, which I love. I'm going to take that back. I love that. So thanks for that idea. But yeah, I mean, we recently measured our psychological safety in our 2024 the E&I survey, and honestly, this was my first year measuring it because I didn't think that we were ready to measure it in the past. I felt like we had a lot of work to do in the early days around DE&I, and actually we scored an 8.74 out of 10. So that's over 80% of our team feel psychological safely at work, right? So at the end of the day, that's such a strong score, and it's a testament to how we treat our employees. It's a testament to how we communicate to our employees. It's a testament to say, you know what, our employees feel safe to come to the conversations with challenges, with pushbacks, and don't feel like they'll be judged for their views as well. And that's why I wanted to measure psychological safety in our most recent DE&I survey, and I'm glad I did. And again, there's so many key takeaways that I've taken away from that, which then we can reapply and really ensure that we are tackling those little niggly pain points to ensure that everyone feels safe, everyone feels heard, everyone feels valued, but also everyone feels like when they give the feedback, they're not going to be judged for it. That's going to be key for psychological safety in this space.
Yeah, what a testament to you and your team, Venessa. I mean, what a fantastic achievement.
Thank you.
Of that score. And it's really clear that, your people at work do feel, mentally positive, confident. And like you say, if people are sharing feedback, that's when you can take that and you can work on it, and you can improve the workplace for people, or you can change things in line of what people are actually saying. And I think that continuous improvement and listening, that feedback loop that you mentioned as well, where you're not just waiting for the end of year survey where you have to suddenly be quite reactive to the negative feedback or the positive feedback that you get. Actually, if you're doing that consistent feedback on a weekly basis or a daily basis, then you can actually pivot quite quickly and react to people before it's too late as well, which is important.
No, 100%. That continuous feedback is going to be is key, and I keep pushing our team leads, our heads of department, keep having those conversations. And you know what, it's going to become normal as well. So what the whole aim of that continuous feedback is to actually normalize feedback that you don't even realize it's feedback. It's so normal, it's so part of an everyday conversation, and it's and we're normalizing it to the point where you just automatically receive it as feedback without even having to think that, oh, I'm just giving feedback here.
Yeah, because I was going to ask how you manage it. Do you use any tools for that, and kind of like a pulse survey? Because I know for us internally, for example, we do a bit of a vibe check every week, where you kind of say, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 5 at work this week? Anonymous, but is it all through conversations in one-to-ones, or like how do you guys?
It's both. So it's a mixture of both. We definitely have our surveys that go out to say how people are feeling at work today, how psychologically safe do you feel at work. My line manager has given me great feedback today or this week or this year, whatever it is. But also we are embedding it into like one-to-ones, ongoing conversations. We almost want to normalize it as a cycle and not wait for the reviews, as I mentioned before. So it's all about kind of that continuous conversation and continuous culture building around it. So we understand, we're using our growth mindset to understand that I'm applying my feedback to my everyday kind of like work to ensure that I'm hitting my goals. We're a high performance team, and and we're having fun at the same time, and it's just a balance, but it's definitely that everyday piece for us. And just that continuous conversation, definitely.
Yeah, and helping you with the data-driven piece as well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what you said earlier, like you need to be able to look at the data and utilize that to build a strategy for the business as a whole. And actually, if you've got that data on a weekly basis, then it's ideal for you as well when speaking to others in the business. Which I think I'm going to order a copy of Radical Candor. I've heard about
it. It's so good. It's so good. Life-changing. Yeah, it's so good.
So that's going to be my main takeaway from today, is to order a copy and really push myself as well to utilize that growth mindset.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let me know how you find it as well. I hope you find it as an interesting read as much as we did here.
I'm sure I will, and I'm sure it already helped me personally as well, kind of challenge myself. So that's a really great takeaway, and I'm sure it'll be a great takeaway for others as well listening to this, who probably are logging on to Amazon or another book retailer now and ordering a copy.
I know. Their sales will shoot up now, Jake.
It's so interesting, like genuinely, another great different perspective from yourself, and it's really interesting the more that these conversations go on to hear different experiences and different advice. And I really enjoyed that. I hope you did too.
No, I did. Thank you. No, yeah, it really got me thinking as well about, how we can even push ourselves further and be, kind of like better versions of ourselves as HR professionals. I mean, as I mentioned before, our role is so pivotal. We are now strategic partners of the business. We have a seat at the table. We are shaping how businesses perform, how they show up, how they treat our employees. So, this conversation has been so great for me to even just self-reflect and see, what am I doing and what aren't I doing and what can I do better, So yeah, no, I've loved it. I've loved every part of this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vanessa.